Well, let's start with Red Knight, winner of the $1 million Kentucky Turf Cup and going in the turf. Was it a hard decision for the owner to put up the 100,000 to make him eligible to take advantage of the win and you're in?
It was got down to the last minute for him, and he wanted Louis Saez. He said, if I can get Louis Saez, I'll put up the money, and Louis was available.
So in between, he ran in the Sycamore and he finished eighth. Got beat like a length and a half for everything. I mean,
Right, he had to check a couple times and had a wide trip turning for home. Very credible race, a lot better than it looks on paper.
did you go into that race thinking you would go into the Breeders' Cup off of it, or were you thinking, well, we don't know what we're doing, so here's a mile and a half race, why not take advantage of it?
Yeah, didn't know what we were doing. Horse was doing well, and entered up to see what see what happens.
And how's he doing coming into
No, doing well, holding form.
this race? Yeah.
Likes the Keeneland Turf course, and figured why not.
You've done well with 8-year-old horses before. But that's another thing that when you talk about putting up the money to make him eligible, the 100,000, the horse is 8. If you didn't know how old he is, how old did you think he is? Just watch him train and race.
I'd say it won a day over 7.
When you look at the entries now that we know for the turf, just your thoughts on the field.
Breeders' Cup field, deep and tough.
What has to happen besides finishing first for him to win? I mean, does he have to
Well,
take a
he's
quantum leap
obviously
forward, a
gonna
little
have
bit
to
forward?
Run the race of his life, but I think that's what everybody has to do. No,
yeah,
he's happy and healthy and on top of his game, and they just don't hand you over $4 million. You got to earn it.
And you have Artemis City Limits in the turf sprint. And you said going into his race at Kentucky Downs that he was a horse that you thought was going to run big, and he just gets beat a zap by Brand, was a nice horse. Talk about Artemis City Limits.
Well, I'd love to add a couple links to his year. It'd be fabulous, but he shows up. I don't think he's been off the board in 2 years, but tries hard every time.
And you've got 2 in the Juvenile
Turf.
Turf. You've got Really Good, and you have, I'm going to look at your saddle towns.
Gaslight Dancer.
That's right, Gaslight Dancer, who didn't he need some help to get in? I mean, it wasn't sure if he was going to get in.
No, he was in the Juvenile Turf all along. He was on the also eligibles for the Juvenile Sprint. Broke his maiden by 5 Kentucky Downs and lost futurity in New York on the grass last time by a head.
Is he in the race that you would prefer him to be in, or would you have rather, if you could have gotten in?
It's one of those things. I think 7/8 miles probably his best distance, and I think probably the Juvenile, but Turf is probably the best race for him. I think the pace scenario favors him, but 14 holes sure doesn't.
Yeah, how do you overcome the 14?
I leg him up and says, "That's why we hire you."
Really Good's another horse that's just really honest every time, and
Yeah, no, he's run his 2 turf starts have been well, so hopefully 3rd time's a charm.
Can you tell me about King Haas?
Taking a shot, he's on top of his game, and another old classy veteran. He'll have to step it up a little bit to be competitive, but he's another one shows up every time.
And how do you feel overall about your collection of horses this year for the Breeders' Cup?
No, they've all earned their way in, and they got to step up their game, but everybody has
16 horses that ran at Kentucky Downs in September that are in the entries for the Breeders' Cup, and there's 4 more that ran either the year before or in 2020. Does that number surprise you, or do you think that's about right? I mean, considering they only race a handful of days and they only run on one surface.
I thought there'd be more, considering I have 5.
5 of 16, huh?
Yeah.
Well, you are the all-time, you coming off a record meet there. You point so much for Kentucky Downs. Is it like point them for Kentucky Downs and then we'll just take our chances with what happens after that?
Yeah, that's all you can do is go race by race.
And, were these horses being pointed for the Breeders' Cup before Kentucky Downs?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, the 2-year-olds we've been high on from day one, so, and, like I said, Artemis City Limits, he's been honest all year. King Cause was a little surprised, but owner wanted to give it a shot, so here we are.
And how does The 2-year-olds, how do they compare to Fire at Will at this same stage?
Fire, I think Gaslight Dancer, you know, he was unlucky to lose a race at Belmont. I think I'd compare him more and really good still, even though he's had 3 starts. Very talented horse, but still has to figure it out.
So they're comparable to going in the race as you were with Fire at Will? Comparable?